My name is Evelyn Carter, and I'm 61 years old. Right now, I'm staring at a manila folder across from me on a desk that gleams too much for a Friday afternoon. The man behind that desk, Ryan Aldridge, our new director, leans back in his leather chair, tapping his manicured fingers like he's waiting for applause. Outside the window, downtown St. Paul moves on without me, like it doesn't realize what's about to happen. "How long have you been with us, Evelyn?" he asks, almost like he's reading from a script. 29 years and 362 days, I reply, and my stomach twists as I say it. The manila folder remains unopened, but it screams something's wrong. In all my years at Granwell Industries, I've never been called into a director's office on a Friday at 4:30 p.m. I've always been the one reviewing policies, drafting risk assessments, or reminding someone, usually someone like Ryan, that regulations aren't optional. But today, I'm the one being assessed. So before you listen, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments. Now, let's ease into the story together. Due to budget constraints, Ryan said, pushing the folder toward me, "We're letting you go, effective immediately." My hands stay folded neatly in my lap. My heart does not. This isn't random. This isn't about budget. Granwell just posted record profits. I should be 3 days away from my pension fully vesting. Instead, I'm being escorted out with a cardboard box. Ryan's eyes don't meet mine, not once. He taps the folder again, like that gesture somehow makes this whole betrayal more polite. "This is your severance package. Sign it by tomorrow or you get nothing. HR will help you clear your desk." I don't shout. I don't cry. I say, "Thank you for the opportunity," with a voice so calm it startles even me. Then I stand, smooth my skirt, and walk out. That's the moment I realize. They expected a breakdown. What they got was a woman who knows how to document. Cheryl from HR meets me outside his office, avoiding my eyes like this is some awkward dinner party. She's young, she means well. "I'm so sorry, Evelyn. This isn't right." "It is what it is," I reply, but in my chest, something clicks into place, something cold and quiet. I collect the essentials, a photo of my late husband Thomas, the little ivy plant Claire gave me when she left for college, and my 25-year plaque that nobody will ever dust again. The rest, I leave behind. My loyalty is not going in that box. The security guard tries to be respectful as he walks me to the door, but he can't even look me in the face. "Have a good weekend, Mrs. Carter," he mutters. "Oh, I believe I will," I reply, stepping into the rain. Driving home feels like swimming through fog. The windshield wipers do their best, but I can barely see past the weight sitting in my chest. I pass landmarks I've seen for 30 years. The cathedral where Thomas and I got married, the school where Claire walked across the stage in her graduation gown, the same winding road to the small house I kept running long after my husband passed. My pension was supposed to be the exhale at the end of all of this. When I get inside, I put the folder on the kitchen table and make myself tea. Earl Grey, always. A ritual when things feel shaky. Then I finally open the severance documents. 3 months' salary, no pension, no continued health care. A signature line with legalese underneath it so sharp, I swear I can feel it nick my fingers. The clause is clear. If I sign, I waive all rights to pursue any legal action. No lawsuits, no claims, no voice. It's not just cruel, it's strategic. I've spent 29 years making sure Granwell followed the rules. In the last 4 of those, I noticed patterns that didn't sit right with me. Financial reports that didn't match purchase orders. Signatures that were, let's just say, too perfect. And always just enough plausible deniability to shut the conversation down. I brought it up, I sent emails, I compiled memos. But once Ryan Aldridge came in 6 months ago, everything started being rerouted to him. And then, silence. They were building this moment, slowly, carefully. But what they didn't know was that I've been building something too. I walk into my office and pull out the lockbox behind a row of photo albums, my safe place. Inside, 4 years of quiet preparation, notes, screenshots, printed emails, memos I'd sent up the chain that were ignored, rejected, or lost. It's all there. A fraudulent loan application, backdated QA reports, entire sets of numbers reworked to hit quarterly targets. I didn't keep this material to blow a whistle. I kept it because something deep inside me whispered, they don't care about the rules anymore, and now I know why. I place it all on my desk and stare at it. There's enough paper here to bury a career, or maybe save mine. My hand reaches for my phone. I scroll through my contacts to one name I haven't called in years. Marcus Flynn. He used to be Granwell's CFO before he left for the SEC. A quiet man with sharp eyes, the kind who never missed a number or a lie. I hover over his name for a long moment, my finger trembling just slightly. Then I press call. The phone doesn't even ring twice. Evelyn? Marcus Flynn's voice hasn't changed, still calm, deliberate, like every syllable has a spreadsheet behind it. Hi, Marcus. I know it's been a while. There's a pause on the line, just enough for him to sense the weight of my voice. What's going on? I don't waste time. I tell him everything. The folder, the 3 days until vesting, the insult of a severance, and most importantly, what's in my lockbox. When I finish, there's a silence, but it's not confusion, it's calculation. Evelyn, he said, this isn't just retaliation. What you're describing, this is deep fraud. You understand that, right? I do now. You kept documentation. Over 1,000 pages. He exhales. Then we need to talk soon. I'll set up a secure meeting with my team for Monday. Until then, don't sign anything, not even a receipt. And Evelyn? Yes? Lock those documents up. 2 copies. One for you, one for us. We'll take it from there. I hang up, my tea cold now, but something in me finally warming. For the first time since Ryan Aldridge handed me that folder, I feel something close to power. The next morning, Saturday, I wake up before dawn. I haven't done that since Thomas passed. Back then, I used to slip out of bed quietly so I wouldn't wake him, sitting with my planner, already sorting the day in my head before sunrise. Today, I do the same. I organize everything, documents, emails, records. I create an index. 3 identical binders, one for the SEC, one for my safe, and one that I'll keep somewhere else, just in case. There's something soothing in the method of it. Numbers, labels, order. It's the one place I've always felt in control. By noon, the phone calls begin. Cheryl from HR. Hi, Evelyn. Just checking in. Did you get a chance to review the documents? I don't answer. Then Ryan Aldridge. Evelyn, we really need that signature. We're under some time constraints. Totally normal procedure, of course. But the sooner we wrap this up, the better for everyone. Still nothing. An hour later, the tone shifts. The company's general counsel leaves a voicemail so dry I could sand a table with it. Ms. Carter, be advised that failure to return the signed agreement by close of business today may result in forfeiture of your severance. This is your final notice. I smile. The voice of desperation wears a tie and calls itself professionalism. At 4:30 p.m., my doorbell rings. Through the peephole, I see Ryan Aldridge on my front porch, out of place in his sleek navy suit, like he's just come from a different world and stepped into mine by accident. Evelyn, I know you're in there, he calls, knocking once more. Let's not make this difficult. Just sign the papers and we can all move on. I say nothing. He waits a minute longer, then slides an envelope into my mailbox and walks back to his luxury sedan like he didn't just try to bulldoze 29 years of loyalty with a smile and a signature line. Inside the envelope is another copy of the agreement, and a note scrawled across the top. Final opportunity, signed by 9 a.m. Monday. I spend the evening on the phone with my daughter Claire. It's our weekly call, and she knows something's off the moment I say hello. Mom, you sound weird. Is everything okay? For a second, I want to lie. Pretend it's just been a long week, that I'm a little under the weather. But Claire's no fool. She's her father's tenacity, and my meticulous nature wrapped up in a much better wardrobe. I was let go yesterday, I say finally. A sharp silence. What, but your pension? 3 days away, I know. They can't do that. Can they do that? They did. Do you want me to come back? I can be on a flight from Denver in the morning. No, sweetheart, I've got this. I don't tell her about the SEC yet. Not until I know it's moving forward. But even through the phone, I hear her frustration, her disbelief, her heart. We talk about lighter things after that. The kids, the neighbor's new puppy, the tomato plants she's trying to grow in her Colorado balcony pots. But the real conversation lingers underneath everything. Claire knows me well enough to know when something big is happening. After the call, I sit in my living room in the dark. No music, no distractions. Just me, a quiet house, and the sound of time ticking down toward Monday. And I think about all the times I could have left. When Thomas passed, and the grief felt like a second shadow. When budget cuts forced me to do 3 people's work for the same paycheck. When I watched younger, louder men with less knowledge leapfrog me into promotions. But I stayed, because I believed in the work, in the rules, in the idea that integrity meant something. Granwell didn't just fire me, they tried to erase me. Just 3 days before my pension, 3 days. But I didn't spend 3 decades following the rules just to be silenced now. And I sure as hell didn't collect a mountain of evidence just to burn it for a severance check. Monday couldn't come soon enough. Monday morning, the air feels sharper somehow, like even the weather knows something important is about to unfold. I dress carefully, navy blue pantsuit, the one I used to reserve for big presentations and quarterly board reviews. Today, it feels more like armor. I pack the binder into a black leather briefcase, the kind Thomas bought me for my 50th birthday. "You'll be running that company by 60, he'd said. Well, not quite. But I will be walking into the federal building holding every card they tried to take from me. The drive downtown is quiet, the streets half asleep, but I'm wide awake, more awake than I've felt in years. I park 2 blocks away from the SEC office, not because I need the steps, but because I want the walk. I want those extra few minutes to breathe, to center myself. The building itself is sleek and subtle, no grand entrances or statues, just glass and metal and quiet intensity. As I step into the lobby, Marcus Flynn is already waiting. He looks older than I remember, a little more silver at the temples, but those sharp, discerning eyes are unchanged. "Evelyn," he said, extending his hand, "I wish we were meeting under better circumstances." "It's good to see you, Marcus, and thank you for taking this seriously." "Of course, you were always meticulous. Let's show them." He escorts me up to a conference room where 2 more people wait. Vanessa Doyle, a senior enforcement attorney with an efficient, no-nonsense energy, and Eli Abrams, a forensic accountant who barely blinks but notices everything. Vanessa starts us off. "Mrs. Carter, before we begin, I want to confirm, do you understand that once you share your documentation with us, this becomes a formal investigation?" "I do," I say, sliding the binder onto the table. "And it's Evelyn, please." Eli begins flipping through the binder slowly, then more quickly. His brow furrows as he reads. "These discrepancies aren't small," he murmurs. "This is systemic. Repeated manipulation of financial data, falsified internal audits. This goes back at least 2 years. Try 4, I add quietly. Ryan Aldridge just made it worse." "You tried to report these internally?" Vanessa asks. I nod and open another folder. Printed emails, memos, meeting notes, all time-stamped, all ignored. They told me I was misinterpreting the data, that I needed to stay in my lane. And once Ryan took over, everything I submitted disappeared into his office. After that, my memos stopped getting responses entirely. She frowns. This is more than just a bad termination. It's fraud, cover-up, and likely securities violations. Eli chimes in. "And if this was hidden from shareholders, it's a violation of federal law. The board may be implicated." I should feel overwhelmed, maybe even scared, but instead I feel clarity. I'm not crazy, I'm not dramatic, I'm not bitter like Ryan probably tells everyone. I was right. Vanessa leans forward. "You've done everything by the book, Evelyn. The whistleblower protections under the Dodd-Frank Act will apply. We'll take custody of your documentation and begin forensic tracing immediately. Do not engage with anyone from the company moving forward without legal counsel." I nod. I'd already made peace with that. "Is there anything else you haven't submitted yet?" I hesitate. "Yes," I say. "There are backup files in encrypted digital form, USB drives. I've kept them in a separate location. They weren't part of what I brought today, but I can retrieve them." Vanessa smiles faintly. Please do. We're going to need everything. The meeting lasts nearly 3 hours. When it ends, I walk out feeling lighter. Not because the fight is over, but because I'm no longer fighting alone. I don't even make it back to my driveway before my phone rings. Cheryl Eng again. Her voice is trembling. Evelyn, something's happening. The board called an emergency meeting. Ryan's locked in his office. The legal team is scrambling. Someone mentioned SEC investigators. Did you? I'm not at liberty to say, I answer carefully. Then another call. Claire? Mom, I saw a post online. Something about Granwell and a federal investigation. Tell me you're okay. I'm more than okay, I assure her. This is the beginning. Then a number I don't recognize. I almost decline it, but instinct tells me to answer. Miss Carter, the voice said, thick with tension. This is Thomas Beckett, chairman of the board. We'd like to invite you to the office tomorrow morning to discuss matters privately. No thank you, Mr. Beckett, I reply coolly. Any discussion regarding my termination or my documentation should include my attorney and potentially SEC representation. A beat of silence, then, I understand. I hang up. That evening, I sit by the fireplace, binder beside me, tea in hand, and I think about how long it took to get here. All those nights I second-guessed myself. All those days I wondered if I was just seeing things, but I wasn't. They wanted me to doubt my eyes, my numbers, my worth, but I'd spent nearly 3 decades proving the value of paying attention. And now, for the first time in a very long time, someone was listening. Tuesday morning arrives under heavy clouds. Not rain, just that quiet grayness that makes the whole world feel like it's waiting to exhale. I'm up early again, this time with a companion, Denise Rowe, my attorney. I'd looped her in last night after my call with Thomas Beckett. She's smart, assertive, and doesn't flinch. Exactly who you want when you're walking into a den of suits trying to make amends without admitting guilt. We meet in the parking lot outside Granwell's corporate building. I haven't been here since the Friday they fired me. But today, I'm not walking in as a terminated employee. I'm walking in as a reckoning. The receptionist can barely make eye contact as she calls upstairs. We're escorted straight to the boardroom. Everyone's already there. Thomas Beckett, legal counsel, a few board members, noticeably absent, Ryan Aldridge. The tension is thick enough to stir. Thank you for coming, Ms. Carter, Thomas begins, voice lower than usual, as if trying to sound less like a CEO and more like a remorseful neighbor. We want to express our regret for how things unfolded last week. I say nothing. Denise doesn't either. Let them squirm. He continues. We've initiated an internal investigation. We've already taken steps to correct certain oversights. We'd like to assure you your termination has been rescinded. My brows lift slightly. That's fast. You are, as of this moment, reinstated as an employee in good standing, he adds. All benefits fully restored, including your pension. And the 3 days I missed? I ask calmly. Retroactively counted, he replies quickly. We'd also like to offer you a consulting position, post-retirement, if you're interested. Denise leans forward. We're not making any decisions today. My client is here to observe and listen, not negotiate. He nods, clearly relieved we haven't stormed out yet. I glance around the room. These are the same people who barely knew my name a month ago. Now they can't stop watching me, like I'm a grenade they can't defuse. Let me be clear, I say finally. I gave 29 years to this company. I filed 47 major reports during that time, 47, and not one of them was taken seriously. Thomas tries to interrupt, but I raise my hand gently. Please, let me finish. I believe Granwell's next chapter will depend on what you do next, not what you say in this room. There's a beat of silence. Even Denise looks quietly impressed. As we gather our things to leave, Thomas makes one last plea. We'd appreciate it if you'd consider speaking positively to the SEC about the actions we're now taking. Your support could be invaluable. I stop in the doorway and turn to face him. I spent decades holding this company to its own standards. If you want my support, you'll earn it the same way I earned my reputation, through consistent, measurable accountability. We walk out, no shouting, no gavel drop moment, just quiet truth laid bare on a boardroom table. Outside, I finally let myself breathe. That was perfectly stated, Denise said. I hope so, I murmur, because it's all true. By Wednesday, the cracks have split wide open. Local business journals run with the story. SEC opens investigation into Granwell Industries. Whistleblower at center of case. The stock plummets. Granwell's executive team goes into hiding. Meanwhile, my phone is a flood of voicemails and news requests. I ignore them all. By Friday morning, headlines hit the national circuit. Analysts who once praised Granwell's lean innovation are now dissecting their ethical erosion. And suddenly, Ryan Aldridge's name becomes synonymous with executive malpractice. Then Marcus calls. "It's worse than we thought," he said. "The financial manipulation goes back 5 years. Aldridge accelerated it, but he didn't start it." "I figured," I say. "There were gaps I couldn't close back then. Too many reports that never reached my desk." "Well," he replies, "we have them now." Later that afternoon, Claire calls again. "Mom, you're kind of famous. They're talking about you on a podcast I listened to." I laugh for the first time in days. Not because I care about the publicity, but because I suddenly remember. This isn't about revenge. It's about record. About truth. About the thousands of people who work inside systems that expect their silence. That night, Marcus calls again. This time, his voice carries both weariness and awe. "You're about to be formally credited in the SEC whistleblower report. They're issuing a statement confirming your role and the authenticity of your evidence." I stare out my living room window as he speaks, watching the light from a neighbor's TV flicker across their curtains. "Are they fighting back?" I ask. "They're trying. Langston gave an interview today claiming you had performance issues and were upset about not being promoted." Classic play, attack the messenger. I smile faintly. Let him talk. I'll handle it. But I don't mean with rebuttals. I mean with proof. The next morning, I drive to my bank. Linda Monroe, the branch manager, greets me at her desk. "Evelyn, I've been following the news. I'm so sorry. What can I do for you?" I place a small binder on her desk. Inside are account records I hadn't initially shared, internal deposit slips, vendor kickbacks, and oddly timed financial transfers, all tangential, but still connected. "I think you'll want to forward these to Marcus Flynn." Her eyebrows rise. "I will, right away." I leave the bank and exhale into the chilly air. No applause. No one clapping in the parking lot. But I don't need that. The truth is out. The fire has caught. And Granwell's empire of silence is finally burning down. Monday morning arrives with a kind of clarity that feels rare in this world. The kind that only comes when the truth has been spoken. Out loud, officially, and into the right ears. Marcus calls before I've even had my second cup of tea. His voice is brisk, serious. "There's chaos over here. The SEC just dropped their preliminary findings. 3 board members resigned this morning. One of them practically sprinted out of the building." I raise my eyebrows, then smile, not out of malice, but out of the quiet satisfaction that comes from justice, finally shaking the dust off her boots and walking through the front door. "Langston's claiming he was just following company precedent," Marcus continues. "But nobody's buying it anymore. The narrative's shifted. And Evelyn, you shifted it." By noon, Granwell issues a press release. The statement is corporate to the bone, sterile language about leadership restructuring, and full cooperation with regulators. But reading between the lines, it's clear. Ryan Aldridge has been terminated. So have 4 board members, including Thomas Beckett. I stare at the press release on my screen, reading it twice. There's no mention of me, no apology. But there doesn't need to be. I'm in every sentence of it. They just can't afford to say my name out loud. Later that day, I receive a certified envelope at my door. This one isn't threatening. It's from the company's legal counsel. Inside is a formal document, eerily similar in format to the one Ryan shoved across his desk 11 days ago. But this one isn't a severance trap. This one rescinds my termination, reinstates my employment retroactively, and confirms the full vesting of my pension. There's also an additional section detailing a one-time settlement in recognition of professional damages and whistleblower cooperation. I called Denise Rowe immediately. They folded. "I told you they would," she said. "But Evelyn, they're not doing this out of generosity. They're scared. They're buying silence. They're not getting it, I say. I already gave everything to the SEC. Then you're the one holding the pen now, not them. It's a strange feeling, this sudden power, after decades of keeping my head down, playing it safe, documenting things no one wanted to look at. Suddenly, I'm not just heard, I'm central. And now the consequences are rippling outward. By Thursday, financial watchdogs, ethics boards, and industry analysts are all weighing in. Some are calling it a turning point. Others are asking how it went unchecked for so long. On Friday, I'm invited to a private roundtable discussion hosted by a group that specializes in corporate ethics reform. They want me to share my experience, confidentially, of course, for training purposes. I'll think about it, I tell them. Because honestly, I'm still trying to process the fact that I don't have to go to work on Monday unless I choose to. 6 months ago, I was just another nameplate on the door. Now I'm a case study. And justice, it finally has receipts. 6 months later, I sit in the back row of a federal courtroom. The seats are hard, the lighting is cold, and yet, the atmosphere buzzes with finality. Across the aisle, Ryan Aldridge and 2 former board members sit with their attorneys. The swagger is gone. The suits are more expensive, but the posture is small, collapsed. They rise when the judge enters, they nod when their names are called. And one by one, they plead guilty. To securities fraud. To deliberate financial misrepresentation. To targeting employees who raised concerns. I don't cry, I don't cheer, I just watch. Ryan and I lock eyes for a moment as he turns to leave. There's no hate in me anymore, just distance. Like seeing a storm you once lived through, now far out over the ocean. After the hearing, Marcus meets me outside. You did this, he said quietly. No, I just did what should have been done a long time ago. Well, the SEC disagrees. They're naming you in the formal acknowledgement, and your whistleblower reward, it's substantial. I blink. How substantial? 15% of the penalties assessed against Granwell. I almost laugh, not because of the number, but because it's poetic. The company that tried to cheat me out of a pension now has to pay me more than I ever imagined I'd retire with. Later that month, I establish a scholarship fund in Thomas's name for women pursuing careers in corporate compliance and ethics. Claire helps me design the logo. It should be sharp, she said, but elegant, like you. Claire's moved back to St. Paul with the kids. We have dinner every Sunday now, and I've started teaching them chess. I tell them the same thing Thomas used to tell me. Pay attention, patterns always reveal the truth. I spend quiet mornings reading by the window, volunteering with a local mentorship program, and attending the occasional ethics panel, not for recognition, but to pass the torch. Sometimes I'm still angry, not about the job, but about the silence, the way people looked the other way, the people who smiled at me while covering up the truth. But then I see Claire, and the kids, and the young professionals I mentor. And I remember they're watching, just like she was. One night over dinner, Claire said something that stops me mid-bite. You know, you never had to tell me how to be strong. You just showed me. I look at her, stunned for a moment, then I smile. Because that, more than the pension or the payout or the headlines, is the real reward. The legacy, there's a strange silence that follows justice. Not the quiet of fear or secrecy or avoidance, but something deeper, a kind of peace that settles in the bones when you know you've done the right thing, even when it cost you everything. That's the silence I wake up to now. No more panicked early morning meetings. No more internal memos being lost in the system. No more watching men like Ryan Aldridge stroll past with their polished charm and empty ethics. I have my pension. I have my name cleared. And more importantly, I have my power back. The SEC's formal acknowledgement comes by mail first. Thick envelope, embossed seal. It feels almost ceremonial. Inside is a letter confirming my full whistleblower status, the protection of my rights, and the finalized financial reward. But the money's not the most important thing. It's the footnote at the bottom of the letter. Due to your courage and documentation, we've initiated reform audits across 8 additional corporations. Your case has already led to 3 new internal investigations. I read that line over and over. 8 companies, 3 investigations. Because one person, one woman they underestimated, chose not to sign. My name may not appear in newspapers, but I'm being talked about in boardrooms now. And that matters more than a headline. That week, I receive a request to speak at an ethics summit in D.C. I almost decline. Public speaking was never my favorite, but Claire nudges me. Mom, you didn't just do something brave. You did something rare. People need to hear from someone who lived it, not just read about it. I take a deep breath and say yes. 2 weeks later, I stand behind a podium in a room filled with compliance officers, lawyers, young professionals with crisp resumes and even crisper ideals. I tell them the story, not just the version with documents and depositions, but the real story. How the small compromises add up. How silence becomes policy. How dignity, if you're not careful, can slowly be traded for comfort. And how the right choice is almost never the easy one. I end with this. I was 3 days away from what I'd earned, and they tried to erase it with a signature line and a polite smile. But what they didn't count on was that I'd been paying attention for 29 years, and when the moment came, I was ready. The applause is soft at first, then it grows. Not loud, not theatrical, just long, steady. The sound of people getting it. In the months that follow, the Thomas Carter Scholarship Fund gains traction. Women from all over apply. Aspiring auditors, forensic analysts, ethics consultants. Some send thank you letters. Some write emails late at night with questions, fears, doubts. I answer everyone. Because I know exactly how lonely it feels when you're the only person in the room raising your hand and asking, "Is this right?" I want them to know you're not alone. You're never as alone as they make you feel. At night, Claire sometimes asks me if I ever wish it hadn't happened. If I could go back, sign the papers, collect the severance, move on quietly. But I always shake my head. Because this isn't about revenge. It never was. It's about resistance. It's about refusing to become the kind of person who sees the fire and decides to warm their hands instead of sounding the alarm. One quiet Saturday morning, I take a walk through downtown St. Paul. The city's waking up around me, coffee shops cracking their doors open, joggers with dogs trotting by, the air smelling faintly of lilacs and morning drizzle. I pass by Granwell's office building. The nameplate is still there, but the windows look different. Fewer lights on, fewer people bustling in. The company still exists, but it's no longer untouchable. That matters. I don't go inside. I don't need to. My presence here is enough. And as I turn the corner, I feel it again. That quiet peace. That reminder that you can live a good life without letting them take your voice. That you can lose your job and still win your future. That you can be 3 days away from being erased and instead become the reason others refuse to be. To the people who tried to silence me, I don't hate you. I don't even think about you much anymore. But I hope you're watching. Because I'm still standing, still working, still telling the truth. And now, you're the ones watching your step. 6 months after the dust settles, I find myself doing something I haven't done in decades. I slow down. Not because I'm tired, not because I've run out of fight, but because I've earned it. Some mornings, I sit by the window with a cup of tea, watching the leaves flutter along the sidewalk. Autumn has arrived in St. Paul, and it brings with it a kind of grace, a slowing, a deep exhale. The city doesn't hustle quite as hard this time of year, and neither do I. I still get updates from Marcus every few weeks. The SEC has finalized its full case against Granwell Industries. The total penalties assessed? Over $86 million. The news alone made a ripple through corporate compliance departments across the country. Suddenly, CEOs who once chuckled at audit reports are paying attention. And internal ethics officers? They're finally being listened to. Funny what a little sunlight and accountability can do. Ryan Aldridge's name hasn't disappeared. He's now a cautionary tale at business schools and HR seminars. I've read excerpts from his deposition. He tried to pin the scheme on poor legacy systems and overburdened reporting chains. Classic. He never once mentioned the memos I sent, never acknowledged the way he rerouted and buried everything I flagged. But it doesn't matter anymore. The courts saw through it. So did the world. He pled guilty. He will serve time. And I serve peace. Claire has officially moved back into town. She bought a little craftsman home just a few blocks away. We do Sunday dinners now, every week without fail. Sometimes it's just the two of us. Other times, the grandkids pile into my living room, leaving behind toys and crumbs and the kind of joyful chaos that fills the spaces I hadn't realized had gone quiet. She tells me things now she never used to, that she was always proud of me, that she never really understood what my job was growing up. Mom, you literally said compliance, and I thought you fixed printer settings, but that she always knew I stood for something. You didn't bend, she said one night, curled up on my couch with a blanket around her shoulders, even when it would have been easier. And that meant more than the payout, more than the pension, more than the headlines. Because that's what it was all for, not to get rich, not to be famous. To show her, and maybe others like her, that integrity matters, even when no one's looking. Especially then. I've started guest lecturing occasionally, quiet events at local universities, sometimes via Zoom. I don't share everything, but I tell enough. About the moment I saw the folder. About the silence that followed my reports. About the voice in me that refused to go quiet. The students always lean forward when I tell them this. You're going to be in rooms where the easy thing looks like the right thing. You'll be told not to make waves, to play along, to stay silent. But please, please, don't forget who you are when no one's watching, because that's the part of you that makes it home at the end of the day. That line always gets them. Afterward, some of them hang back. They ask questions, some shyly, some boldly. A few are already in jobs where they've seen things that don't sit right. I give them my contact info. Tell them I'll listen. I always will. Because someone listened to me once, and it changed everything. Eventually, I returned to the fireproof lockbox. It's tucked away now in a different cabinet. The binders are labeled, archived, neat. I pull them out one last time. Not because I need to submit anything else, but because I want to remember. The woman I was when I made each note, when I wrote each memo, when I pressed send, even though I knew it would vanish into the void. She didn't do it for applause. She didn't even think anyone would notice. She did it because it was right. That woman deserves to be seen. I place a photo of Thomas inside the box, next to the files. He always believed in me, even when the world didn't, even when I wasn't sure I believed in myself. This is where the truth lives now, I whisper. And I lock it shut. Sometimes I still get asked how it felt, walking out of that boardroom the day they tried to cover their tracks, walking into the SEC office with a binder full of truth, walking through a courtroom where justice finally caught up to them. And I always say the same thing. It felt quiet. Not triumphant, not cinematic, just solid. Like the sound of a door locking behind you that you'll never have to open again. But the story didn't end in that courtroom. Life, as it tends to do, kept unfolding. Granwell's new leadership team reached out to me months after the trial. A different tone, a different face. They offered me a seat on an independent advisory panel, a gesture meant to show reform, transparency, and restitution. I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no either. Instead, I asked to meet them, not in the boardroom, but in the employee break room, the one where I used to refill my tea every morning while no one looked up from their screens. So they agreed, and I sat across from a new CEO and 2 board members who hadn't even been with the company during the fraud. I looked them in the eyes and asked one question. What are you doing now that no one's making you do? They blinked, then slowly began to answer. They talked about overhauling compliance protocols, elevating internal audit roles, offering ethics training, not just as a checkbox, but as a conversation. It wasn't perfect, but it was more than I expected. When they finished, I told them the truth. If I decide to get involved, it's not as your symbol. I'm not here for PR. I'm here to make sure you don't forget. They understood. I could see it in their faces. So I agreed, on one condition, that I be allowed to mentor young compliance officers internally, one-on-one, quietly, personally. They agreed. And just like that, I became the one thing Ryan Aldridge never saw coming. a legacy within the company he tried to erase me from. The scholarship fund grows faster than I imagined. Donations come in from law firms, ethics watchdogs, and even anonymous corporate donors. I suspect some are former Granwell execs trying to buy a little peace for their conscience. I take their money and turn it into opportunity. Young women write to me, telling me how they once thought ethics sounded boring, until they realized it was the backbone of every good decision in business. I smile when I read those messages, because I know exactly what they mean. They're discovering what I discovered across nearly 3 decades, that ethics isn't about saying no. It's about asking better questions. Claire and I spend more time together than we ever have. We laugh more too. One evening, as we're cleaning up after dinner, she stops and said, "You know, for a while I was worried that what happened would break you." I pause. It did, I admit, but then it rebuilt me into someone stronger. She nods slowly. I'm glad, because I think it built me too. That night, after she leaves, I write in my journal for the first time in years. Not numbers, not memos, just feelings. Not everything I kept inside was meant to be evidence. Some of it just needed to be spoken, even if only to myself. In early winter, I get invited to attend a closed-door hearing where the final restitution terms for Granwell's shareholders will be laid out. I'm not required to be there. I'm not testifying, but they thought I should have a seat. I sit quietly in the back row again. As the lawyers and SEC officials talk through the numbers, the penalties, the agreements, I don't really listen. I'm looking at the people in the room. And I realize something. I don't feel small anymore. I used to shrink to fit into places that didn't deserve me. I used to make my voice quiet so others could feel loud. But not now. Now I take up space, not loudly, not aggressively, just unapologetically. As the hearing concludes, one of the attorneys I've never met turns to me and said, "I read your initial report. It was impressive. You're the reason we had a case at all." I nod. No, I'm the reason they didn't get away with it. He smiles, and I walk out into the snow-covered parking lot. My breath rises into the cold sky like smoke from a long-extinguished fire. And in that moment, I understand something I never did while I was buried in spreadsheets and memos and unread emails. Whistleblowing isn't about being angry. It's about being unwilling to stay quiet when the cost of silence becomes greater than the fear of speaking. It's about love. Love for the people who deserve better. Love for the work you spent your life doing with integrity. Love for the truth, even when it shakes the walls down. And most of all, it's about love for yourself. It's a Tuesday morning, cool and bright, when the final ruling arrives. The SEC issues its last formal report on Granwell Industries. It's 174 pages long. Detailed, precise, ruthless in all the right ways. The summary? Systemic fraud dating back over 5 years, concealed through manipulated reports and silenced dissent. But right there, on the acknowledgement page, is my name. This investigation would not have been possible without the early, sustained, and ethically exemplary reporting by Ms. Evelyn Carter. I don't cry, not because I'm not moved, but because something deeper happens. Something like closure. That page becomes more than a document. It becomes the stone on which everything I endured is carved. It becomes proof that the story didn't just happen to me, I shaped it. That afternoon, Marcus calls. "We're getting requests from other agencies," he said. "Your case is becoming a model for corporate ethics reform. They're asking how we handled it and what made the difference." I already know the answer, even before I say it out loud. "You listened." He laughs soft and warm. "No, Evelyn, you didn't wait to be listened to. You made us listen." He's right. Too often, people in power assume silence means agreement, that compliance means complicity. But sometimes, silence is just a breath before the storm. And I was the storm they didn't prepare for. In the weeks that follow, invitations flood in. Not just to speak, but to consult, to mentor, to advise. Denise helps me sort through the ones that matter and the ones that are just fishing for PR. I only say yes to the ones that give real access to people on the ground, not the ones trying to rebrand their reputation. Meanwhile, the scholarship fund now bears the full name, the Thomas Carter Foundation for Corporate Integrity. Claire helped with the website. It's simple, clean, purposeful, just like the man at honors. Our first cohort of recipients sends in their bios. One wants to become a forensic accountant. Another's already interning at a financial regulator's office. A third said she wants to be the person who notices what everyone else is ignoring. I read that line 3 times. I get goosebumps each time. That's it. That's what this was all for. Not just to end something broken, but to start something better. One Saturday morning, I returned to Granwell. Not for meetings, not to review policies, but to meet someone. Her name is Naomi, and she's the company's new compliance officer. 31, sharp, kind eyes, nervous hands. We sit across from each other in the break room. Yes, the same one I used to retreat to during late nights of memo writing. I've read everything, she said. The case, the reports. Your name's kind of a legend around here now. I chuckle softly. Careful, legends don't file daily status reports. She laughs, then hesitates. I guess I just wanted to ask, how did you keep going when no one was listening? I think for a long moment before answering. I stopped expecting the reward to come from the people I was trying to protect. She blinks. And I started focusing on who else might benefit if I didn't quit. Sometimes, the people we help the most don't even know we did it. Naomi nods slowly, like she's hearing something she's been waiting to believe. Before I leave, I hand her a small envelope. Inside is a copy of one of my earliest reports, one that got ignored. I want you to keep this, I tell her. Not because it's special, but because it wasn't. It was just one of dozens that got buried. I want you to see what silence looks like, so you'll never let it happen again. She clutches it like it's a letter from the future, and maybe it is. Driving home, I take the long way, past the old office building, past the courthouse, past the coffee shop where I first met Denise. The streets have the same names, but they feel different now. I'm not just part of this city's skyline. I'm part of its memory. And maybe its future, too. That evening, Claire and I sit on the porch while the kids play in the yard. The sun is setting in that slow, golden way that makes everything look like a photograph. She turns to me and said, "You know, I tell your story at work sometimes." "Do you?" "Yeah, not all of it, just the part where you said no." "Which time?" I ask, smiling. "All of them." We laugh, and it's the kind of laugh that stays with you. Because what they tried to destroy didn't end with a pink slip. It ended with a ripple. That became a wave. That became a reckoning. And I am still here, standing in its center. If there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that justice doesn't arrive with a trumpet. It doesn't always make headlines or come with applause. Sometimes it arrives as a quiet moment on your back porch, the sun slipping behind the trees, your grandchildren's laughter echoing from the yard, and the sudden realization that you didn't just survive. You endured. You rebuilt. You mattered. It's a Thursday afternoon when I get a call from a journalist who's been following the case. She wants to write a long-form piece on whistleblowers. What happens after the verdicts, after the settlements, after the final press release fades from public interest. "I want to talk about what it's like to still be that person," she said. "When the story ends for everyone else, but your life continues in the echo." I agree to speak with her, but only if I get to tell the ending my way. So here it is. To Ryan Aldridge, I don't hate you. I don't wish you harm. In fact, I hope this forced reckoning becomes the beginning of your own long overdue self-examination. You didn't just try to fire me. You tried to erase me. You gambled that I'd choose silence over truth. But here's the thing you didn't count on. I never worked for you. I worked for integrity. For fairness. For the invisible army of people who keep their heads down and do the right thing without recognition. And now they see me. I became visible because you tried to make me invisible. That's your legacy, but this is mine. To the people listening to my story right now. Maybe you've seen something. Maybe you've felt something off, something no one else seems to notice or wants to talk about. Maybe you've been told it's not your place, that it's too complicated, that it's not worth it. Listen to me. It is. It is so worth it. Because standing firm in your values, even when you're scared, even when you're alone, even when you've been pushed to the very edge of doubt, isn't just bravery. It's the beginning of every real change the world has ever known. Don't let them tell you you're difficult. Don't let them sell you silence. And never, ever let them make you smaller than the truth you carry. I didn't walk through all of this to be celebrated. I walked through it so the next person might walk through with just a little more courage, a little less fear, and maybe a friend on the other side. So now I'll ask you, have you ever stood up when staying quiet would have been easier? What was the outcome? Tell me your story in the comments. Let's make this more than a video. Let's make it a space for voices that didn't get heard until now. And if this story resonated with you, if it made you think about your own worth, your voice, your values, like the video, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to be reminded. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary. Integrity isn't optional, it's your legacy. And if no one's told you lately, I'm proud of you. I really am. Stay safe, stay strong, and above all, stay honest. You never know who's watching.